Hello and welcome. Anyone take a look at the list of people that are currently joining us live here in the LibreFest platform? There looks like there are 98 people present in this talk right now. This talk is also being broadcast to YouTube. So if you're joining us there, feel free to pop a chat in there. We'll try to man that with anyone who might be available to do that. There is a link in that YouTube description to register for LibreFest if what you hear today sounds good and you'd like to learn more about it. This is exciting. So many people. Well, welcome to LibreFest. This is the first keynote of the week. Those of you who are joining us online, welcome. For those of you who are here at the LibreFest virtual conference, we are going to kick off the week with a little talk about LibreTexts, where we've been, and how we are currently trying to build a community to champion OER. This will give you a little history of LibreTexts, who we are, and our platform as a whole, followed by a short session on an overview of all of the aspects and all the tools we have. That is our overview of the LibreVerse talk. And then following up with that is our assessment and integrations and interactivity tools talk that will be after that. So with that, I will get started. I realized I didn't have a slide to introduce myself. My name is Justin Shorb, and I am the Director of Curriculum Innovation and Development here at LibreTexts. So that means professional development centers, trainings, and guides. I'm here to help you with all of those things. So if you are new to LibreTexts, or if you've been here for a while, I'm going to put up a poll for those of you who are attending. If you haven't seen the poll, looks like a lot of people are already there. Let's see if there's still some more fluctuating. We are excited to be here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close it at that point, and take a look at it. So of the people that are currently registered and signed in, we've got about 30% of the people that are completely new. Welcome. I hope that you learn a lot and that we make that learning curve as easy as possible for you to access all the tools that you're interested in. For those of you who've used it a long time ago, the next few slides are for you to tell us how much has really changed in LibreTexts in the past 3 years. For those of you who've already built something, awesome. You guys can feel free to jump into the chat, share your stories, and if you are giving one of our success stories, we're excited to hear it. For those of you who are linking to our resources, I go to conferences all the time where I see people who have never even known you could log into LibreTexts. So they just would use links to our textbooks, use links to our resources, and have never even registered. If you haven't registered and you're here in LibreFest right now, right after this session is a break, and during that break, there is a session for getting your Libre 1 account and getting the instructor verification done. Jennifer will lead you through that process and make sure you're up and running before we get to our training sessions this afternoon. Great. So like I mentioned, LibreTexts has grown a lot. But to really talk about what LibreTexts is, I like to set the stage and make sure we know what OER is. So OER is Open Educational Resources, OER. Those things are free, openly licensed educational materials that can be used for teaching, learning, research, and other purposes. That's one definition from the Hewlett Foundation. Another one is from the UNESCO definition, which kind of makes it a little bit more clear. OER are teaching, learning, or research materials that are in the public domain, so anyone can use for any reason whatsoever, or released with intellectual property licenses that facilitate the free use, adaptation, and distribution of resources. So making sure that things are freely to be used. Now that has a lot of different connotations and meanings, so it's good to talk about those. What does it mean to be free or open in general? Well, open is the opposite of closed, right? So you don't restrict access to it. Or open could be free as in liberty, having things available to be used whenever you'd like to. But how freely available is it? Is there any access restrictions to even get to the resources? Do you have to have some account or pay for some subscription? How free is it really to be used? Then the last free that everyone thinks of off the top of their head usually is it's free as in cost. So you don't have to pay for it. So if you don't have to pay for it, then what does that mean? So how different free can those be? It mentioned in the previous slide that OER has some either public domain or it's licensed so that the intellectual property has some freedom of use. So this can scale, and this is the Creative Commons licenses that you might have heard before. They can come all the way down from no one can use this in any way, shape, or form without my consent at all the way up to you don't even have to put my name on it. Just use whatever you want. I don't care. So that's very, very free and open. Most people fall somewhere in the middle. So a lot of OER resources, you're like free to use, but could you just put my name on it to say that started with this person so that you at least get some credit for it, but otherwise you can modify it, change it, do whatever you'd like. That's one license. Other ones are non-commercial. And we'll have a talk later this week on what mastering open licensing is really about and understanding that at a more detailed level. I'm not going to go into that here. So if you'd like, register for LibreTexts if you're not already, or if you are, go add that to your schedule so you know what it, so you know to go ahead and visit that mastering one. So why should we use and create OER? Well, I think everyone knows that content delivery is an expensive problem. So how you get materials to your students can be extremely expensive. And the price of textbooks, the price of homework systems, the price of subscriptions to access online material have gone up an awful lot. If anybody in the chat here wants to just comment with the most expensive materials that you've seen that students have had to pay for in their campus, I would love to see some of those numbers of what we're trying to fight against by driving down the costs. I think a lot of them are going to be some homework systems that students have to pay for. Oh, yeah. 30,000 for one class? Whew. Anyone else have some prices of things? A graphic design book that costs $1,000. Oh, nursing textbook bundles are super expensive. Yes, I know that that's true. I know at least my organic chemistry book from 10 years ago was the homework system and the book and some glasses for about $250. So content delivery problems and that cost is not just a thing to think about because you don't want students to spend a lot of money. There are other consequences to having things so expensive for our students. And one of those consequences is the fact that the students will just not buy the textbook, or they'll take fewer classes that semester because they can't take the classes. They may drop a course because they can't afford all of the textbooks for that whole entire semester, or maybe they're just not going to purchase the book at all, which means they don't have their own copy. They can't engage with it however they want to. So really, lowering textbook costs is an important thing, not because we're just altruistic, but because it negatively impacts our educational mission to have these costs for materials be too expensive. And we want to make sure education is accessible to all of our students. And we want them to be ready to start on day one, ready to go into their classroom and to engage wholly with the material instead of worrying about how they're going to be paying for things or when they can afford to get what they need to get for their classes. The other one that we want to talk about is freedom for the faculty members to think about their own course materials. So course materials like textbooks should be a tool to aid in the building in verbose knowledge base in students. So basically, you should get materials that help your students. They should be materials that help your pedagogy, that engage in the way you want, increase the interactivity for your students the way they want. But course materials should not be a crutch to limit your own content development, your own pedagogy, and your own assessment materials and your advancement. So in other words, you don't want to be constrained by a textbook because it's what the publishers wanted you to have. So therefore, you're going to have quizzes in this structure. You're going to have homework in this structure. You're going to have learning objectives that are written a certain way. You can't move to a more inquiry-based method because your book has this already set in some way. You can't deliver material in the way that you want to. So you're really limiting the freedom that you have in your pedagogy and the way that you're doing courses if you're avoiding OER. So the benefits of OER obviously are textbook savings and reducing the cost of attendance for students, but it's also preparedness. Students have the materials they need on the first day. It increases equity and removes barriers to student success regardless of their background. It also allows you to address any lack of representation in the material that you're using. So for instance, if the book you're using has only examples from the Northern Hemisphere, but you're teaching about something in the Southern Hemisphere, you want to be able to make that representation change, or if there's any other representation that's lacking in your textbook materials you're using, modify those things, make them relevant to your students, your student body, and what they look like, how they engage, and where they're from. And this will add contextualization in general, making your materials more relevant to students and to learning. So some barriers that faculty have told us about adoption of OER in their classes. This is from a survey there, that there's not enough resources for their subjects. It's too hard to find what you need. There's no comprehensive catalog of all these OER resources. How do I find them? And you really need to have an online system or some interactivity that will help students to engage. So for instance, I want to address that first one there. There have been studies on using OER. This study in Sacramento City College, for instance, looked at classes that used OER on campus in their class or non-OER. And you'll see across the board there, that red bar is higher than the green bar routinely every single time. So using OER in your class does not make your students at any sort of disadvantage from people using non-OER materials, publisher materials, for-profit materials. So that's kind of not a worry. Our content is good. The OER materials that come out of our LibreTexts are vetted by faculty who've used them in their classroom. These are all people who have actually used them in their classroom before you get a chance to see them. So the team that really is passionate about this, I mentioned in our opening ceremony, but I wanted to talk about it here as well, is these 4 people that you'll see in the chat, along with Amy. I forgot to put your picture on this one. I apologize. Delmar Larson is the founder of LibreTexts, and someone who's been with us for a long time and champions OER across the country is Joshua Halpern. He's also in the chat here. Jennifer Rogers, if you're on YouTube chatting, you might be interacting with her. She's trying to man multiple platforms. She's our Director of Outreach, Engagement, and Development. And I'm here alongside Benny, our mascot, to engage faculty in training and resources for education. I just saw back in the chat, organic books over 200. Oh yeah, $500 textbooks, biochemistry textbooks. Oh yeah, so much money. So let's give a talk to why LibreTexts was started. So back in the day when Delmar Larson, the founder and initial person involved in building LibreTexts, was a professor at UC Davis. He still is, but he grew up in a truck outside with his father a long time ago, building up through the system. This is a picture of where they were parked, and he benefited from public education from elementary school to high school to college to graduate school, and he now works at a public institution. Public education changed everything about his life, his ability to succeed and help other people, and he really desired that for his students. However, when he became a professor, he realized that his students that were like him had this additional burden that he didn't necessarily have in his growing up, or that was a burden still. That created this need for, let's get this affordable for my students. So he started off with the UC Davis ChemWiki. Some of you here are chemists, and you might have heard of the ChemWiki. You may not know that the ChemWiki is the same thing as LibreTexts. The UC Davis ChemWiki grew. It expanded outside of chemistry, and in fact, the chemistry library is the same content and then some that the ChemWiki started with. But what we've realized at LibreTexts is that to fully replace for-profit publisher models, LibreTexts must be more than just OER books. It can't just be content. It has to be the content as well as robust technologies. It has to be developing and growing with new accessibility tools, making sure it meets the needs of our students and faculty. And it also has to have robust training for faculty to be able to use it in a meaningful way. So that's when you hear the word LibreVerse, that's the LibreTexts, which is our libraries, has expanded to the LibreVerse, which is much more than just content. In fact, it is all the things that you see when you go to LibreTexts, the little rocket ship we call the launch pad. We'll talk about more of that after the break. It's where we have our Adapt homework system, our H5P, our Jupyter notebooks, our Forge for long form writing assignments. It is where we have our support center, our training materials, and even more. So yes, we do have those 16 libraries of content all across all the disciplines, but we also have a bunch of other materials to help you out. So an idea of what those are, we have over 3,600 textbooks in our library, over 300 LibreNet member institution campuses, including the CSUs, ASCCC from California, the community colleges there, Carly from Illinois, KBOR, as well as the Florida campuses are all included in our consortium of member institutions committed to lowering costs for our students. We have over 319,000 homework questions in our ADAPT database. That is an OER library to be used. Over 4,000 file uploads of additional assets and ancillary materials for our books, and a full project management system for developing and building materials. So here's a little picture of all the people who have published with LibreTexts across the country, as well as the LibreNet consortium member institutions. And if you're not a member of our consortium, do stop by that LibreNet booth in our expo and chat with Jennifer about the benefits there. The LibreText has a massive impact out there in the community. This is a picture over the last June, December. So it's about 6 months or so of people who have visited our website and looked at our books. Over 3.3 million have studied for about, visitors have studied for about 2.5 minutes per page. If you're familiar with website analytics, this is a long time to spend per page. So people are actually reading our material and engaging with it. This is over 1.3 million hours of studying, reading, reviewing that people are doing on our platform. So this all goes back to our original LibreText mission that Delmar set out when he created that ChemWiki. We want to implement a community-built OER resource platform portal that is comprehensive and can be curated at multiple levels. So community means you, everyone in this room, everyone on YouTube, anyone who's involved in caring about lowering the cost of education for everyone. OER means it's going to be free. Comprehensive means no gap left behind. If there's something that's missing in our library, anyone can write it and publish it into there to make sure our material is as comprehensive as possible. Also, no technology left behind. We work with a lot of faculty who have really great teaching resources, but maybe they're retiring. Maybe some platform needs to be updated in order to be useful for the next generation of students. We work on a technology and development platform to help those technologies to be sustainable. And last, we are not just a repository. We are a curated library. We are curatatory, as Delmar likes to coin. This means that we're a living library. We don't just remain a static repository of books that you can go and look at if things need to be modified, revised. If you want to make your own revision of it that's pertinent to your class, then you can do so. So our LibreText mission today is even more comprehensive. The LibreText mission is to bring together students, faculty, and scholars in a collaborative effort to provide accessible and comprehensive platform that empowers our community to develop, curate, adapt, and adopt openly licensed materials, resources, and technologies. Through these efforts, we can reduce the financial burden borne from traditional educational resource costs, ensuring education is more accessible for students and communities worldwide. So basically, this brings into the fold the fact that everything we do is born out of the idea that we want to lower the cost and the burden for students to access higher education. So that is why our tagline is LibreTexts, purpose over profit. We are not here to make a profit. Nothing about what we do is driven by profit. We're never going to suddenly turn some part of what we do into a for-profit institution. We are here because of our purpose. So how does this affect everyone in the room and how we're going to engage with each other for a community? Well, we have a choice in how we're going to do OER. Every institution has to make this choice. Are you going to be a centralized or join a centralized platform, or are you going to be very decentralized with how you approach this? So the benefits of a centralized platform, so for instance, if you're at University of Michigan and you want to have a nice OER platform that you are going to be building, then there is high stability in that because your institution is devoted to it. The fidelity is there. As long as you care about it, it will last. It's effective for sharing because Anyone can use it in the same way. You can pool your resources. It's efficient. Those sorts of things can all be comprehensive together. But there is lack of that local control. So that resource, if it's supposed to be for everybody, will suddenly not be what you want for your classroom. So if you're at some other school and you wanted to use that person's stuff, then you're not really able to modify it in the way that you want to. So you can move it to being more decentralized. So that would be like everybody gets their own platform. I'm going to purchase a license from some OER material that's going to let me have my own OER on my campus, and maybe we can share it, okay? But everyone gets their own license. Everyone gets their own tools. This becomes very fragmented, and it becomes independent resources. It could be, everything is different platforms. They use different interoperabilities, some different licenses. It's quite inefficient. What LibreTexts aims to do is be right in the middle between those. We want all the benefits that you can have from being one central repository where everything interacts together, everything works together, while at the same time, you can modify and revise and reuse things for your own campus's tools in a way that it will work for your classroom alone. So we want to be as centralized for interoperability and for sharing as possible, but we also want to make sure that people have the flexibility to rewrite that book so it doesn't have chapter 3, because I hate that chapter 3. I want my own chapter 3. So I am nearing up towards the end of this talk. Wait, no. Actually, I think I have a whole other half hour, right? Let me really quickly check. Oh, never mind. Perfect. Good. I have a couple more slides. So I was like, I can't be close to being done. So with that introduction to the background of LibreTexts, where we came from, what we were going to do, you know that we are a library of OER materials. But I want to show you a little bit of how much has changed in the last 3 years so you know what sorts of tools we have and where we're going. This will give you a launch pad to the rest of the week. So back in August of 2023, we made a single sign-on. If you were familiar with LibreTexts before that, then you realize there was a library here. You had to have a registration for that one. There was another library. If you wanted to do math and chemistry, you had to have a login for both of them. We involved single sign-on back then. So that way, every single platform has one login. For your knowledge, that is called the Libre One login. So if you hear us talk about the Libre One registration or the Libre One email address, that's the one we're talking about. It's our single sign-on Libre One. And from there, back in after that, we moved our Jupyter Hub to our own servers that used to be hosted by UC Davis. We moved that here. We have Benny the Owl joined us in 2024. Adapt grew exponentially with new tools for molecular structure drawing, for Discuss It, which is a like VoiceThread. It's a asynchronous chat, threaded chat discussion that you can be graded. There's a session on that later today that's really interesting. We also worked with the people who built something called Antecedent, which is for long form writing, and we moved that into our platform as the Forge. We redesigned our whole support center in 2024 so that we have more resources for faculty and for liaisons, for tech support on campuses to be able to access things. We have a ton of ongoing grant work that has supported this in collaboration with a bunch of different institutions. If you want to hear more about our grant work and how you can get involved in working with LibreTexts for your own grants, there's a session, I believe it's on Wednesday or Thursday. It's called the LibreTexts Partnerships and Grants session. I would recommend that you attend that. We also developed in 2025 a strategic plan that has been leading our growth since then to building a sustainable and interconnected LibreVerse. More on that interconnectivity later today during that interactivity session with Delmar. We developed and launched the LibreTexts Academy, which has been really successful in building a cohesive environment for people to get cohort support, grant support, and faculty training across the country, either in person or virtually. We're strengthening our community partnerships with not only our institutions in California, where we were founded, but also abroad, and building a sustainable and transparent model. Everything we do has community support because it has community input, and we invite people to talk with us whenever we can. We also launched that LibreTexts Academy I mentioned, which is this is our first LibreFest that's really under the umbrella of that, and to support this goal of building networking and community uh, support to the people, and lowering that learning curve for LibreTexts, which has always been a little bit of an issue. We have launched AI co-authoring tools for a lot of the metadata, writing alt text for images, generating summaries, helping you develop your own index automatically based on the content of your book. That happened last year. This is a picture of it, super easy to use, just some toggles, and suddenly all of your alt text is filled in for you, and your book has all the summaries that you need. We did start our first cohorts in authoring. We have question building cohorts, grant project publication and hosting, and we did some 3-year launches for ZTC programs around the country. We also have expanded beyond textbooks to being repositories of collections. So if you're interested in building a collection of useful teaching materials that is not a textbook, maybe it's a set of worksheets, maybe it's a set of videos, something along those lines, we have the ability to create those marketing kits as an example there, but any sort of a kit or a set of materials that might be useful outside of just being tied to a single textbook. In 2025 and into 2026, we're refining our conductor, which is our project management tool, in many, many ways. In fact, we just saw pictures of this. I don't know if Delmar can say in the chat. I think it's available for a lot of people, maybe everybody, for our centralized task list, which I know a lot of our ZTC coordinators and OER librarians who work with their faculty have been asking for a way to keep track of multiple things going on at once. If you want to hear more about these new advancements and tools that we're using, the AI, the co-authoring tools, the conductor project management tools, make sure to check out that new tools talk, which is later today and then also tomorrow morning for the people on the East Coast. We did launch the Forge. I briefly mentioned that earlier today. This has long form writing. I highly recommend you attend Sarah Harmon's talk tomorrow about the Forge to hear how it's used in a classroom. This supports our efforts to move forward, engaging people in open pedagogy practices. So all of that has happened in the content side, but we also have our new launch of LibreText Store last year. So if you've tried to buy a textbook from us before, our textbook purchasing for print is not for profit, very low cost, and very, very easy to use now, especially if you need to order multiple copies of things. If you want to learn more about that, definitely hit up Jennifer. She'll be in the LibreNet booth, but she's also going to be around elsewhere. That's just another picture of the LibreText Store. Many people have asked for analytics. We do have a ton of analytics that are now available, and these can be available for your book. If you need access to them, just talk to us. We've got support for building that into your conductor page as well. So 2025 really was about expanding LibreText to being more than textbooks. We have content, we have technology, we have development, we have training, and really centralizing what we're doing here at LibreText to encompass all aspects of this. Again, to say open education without the profit. We are not here to make a profit. We're here to make sure students have access to education. So in 2026, infrastructure has been growing, and a lot of it has to do with accessibility. We want to make sure that everything in LibreText is completely accessible, from our homework to our textbooks to all of our engaging and interactivity tools that we can. So we have had an overhaul of our Commons and Conductor for accessibility. Our new remixer, which was already the most powerful one I've ever seen, is getting to be even better. That's launching soon, or might have even launched. I've been able to play with it for a bit. It's awesome. We have a lot of new tools that are coming out for publishing. I mentioned that a little bit ago, but that's the name of it, Transforming OER Text with New LibreText Tools. That's a talk that you can see later today or tomorrow morning. Rebuilding Adapt will be happening later this year to make sure that it's a sustainable product that lasts and has all the security that we need. I didn't mention it here. We're also going through SOC 2 compliance to make sure that we can be used on as many campuses as possible with our LTI integration. And we are working to make sure all of our assessment platforms this year can link through Adapt so that we have one centralized gradebook that can link to any school's gradebook. We are rebuilding our exporter and importer, which is the Shapeshift tool for exporting books into better PDFs, more accessible PDFs, and much more beautiful, to be honest, PDFs. We have other new AI tools which you can learn about in that talk that's up there. A new Ask Benny for engaging students with the books to navigate through books, find materials that are in the books, all of those things, and even more, to be honest. So there's, as you attend this week, you're going to hear a lot of new cool things. So what's 2026 really going to be about beyond technology and development there? It's empowering the community. So 3 other things that I wanted to mention here. We have our Connections Forum. So this is a place for you to go as verified instructor accounts to ask questions, to engage with the community, to share, to ask questions of content, and to maybe even report any concerns you have with a book that has some errata, to share that with the community so that we can all continually curate and grow this library that we all are devoted to. Our documentation is getting an overhaul. Again, driving our mission to make sure that you're empowered to learn and to teach people how to use LibreTexts on your campuses. We are streamlining the support for everyone between the insights, which is our question and answer forum, our connections, our construction guide, which is like our user manual, and our quick start guide for publishing. And we're empowering leadership around the country. We've attended the American Library Association for the first time this year to talk to librarians that have these goals on campus for their schools. 3-year ZTC plans for campuses that we've been working with leaders around the country to build 3-year plans to lower costs for everybody. And we're building more consolidated project management tools for those leaders to access dashboards for the use, the tools to look at all the metadata associated with materials that are growing in their campuses. Thank you so much for coming.